Hi, my name is Dennis DeVendra. I'm a wood turner and I happen to be blind as well. What I'd like to do today is show you how I'm going to take this piece of wood and turn it into a hollow vessel. First of all, I'm going to mount it on the lathe and rough it down to a cylinder using a roughing gouge. From there, I will mount it on the headstock using a 4-jaw chuck and then shape the outside of the vessel using a spindle gouge. From there, I will bore a hole using a large drill bit mounted on the tailstock. At that point, I'll use a hollowing rig from Kelton and the tools from Kelton to actually hollow the vessel out. I will then part the vessel off, remount it on the lathe, and clean off the bottom. And so, first of all, what I have to do is I use these circles here to center, and a nail to find the center of this piece of wood, and then we'll start roughing it out. So let's get started. During the hollowing process, I use many different tools. I'd like to show you the tools that I'm using. This is the first, this is the general lathe. It's a 25-650 model. It has a 16-inch swing, which means I can turn a bowl up to 16 inches in diameter. When I rough out the cylinder, I use this 1/2-inch roughing gouge. This is from Packard Supply. This is their own brand. For shaping the outside of the vessel, I use the roughing gouge as well as this 3/8-inch Henry Taylor spindle gouge. When I want to bore out a hole through the form of the vessel, in this case, I use here a 3/4-inch drill bit. It's about 7 inches long. It's much better than a Forstner bit because it doesn't get caught in the form. For the hollowing process, here I have the Kelton rig. This is the small Kelton rig. It's the smaller of the two. They have a larger one for larger forms and larger lathes. It's very. I just secure it here to the lathe. It's a very user-friendly device, very simple in design, but very stable and effective in hollowing. As you see coming out here is a 5-inch hollowing scraper. This is the straight shape on this. On the other side of the rig, they have a 1/2-inch hole that will allow for the 1/2-inch tools. Now, here's the 1/2-inch tools. This is what I usually start with. And you can see they come in 3 different shapes. They have a much more curved shape to get under the shoulder. They have a less curved shape to get to the side of the form, and then they have a straight piece that then will allow you to get to the bottom of the form. They come in many different sizes. Each set comes in many different sizes. They start with 5/16, go to a 1/2-inch. We got the 5/8-inch, and then they have the 3/4 as well. I have the 1/2-inch and the 5/8-inch here. As I'm hollowing out the form, I use this Kelton caliper. It's a little different than most, but it's very effective because it does. When I measure the outside of the form, it gives me a very clear dimension or a reading on the outside of the form. The term is tangential. It does not have the. It allows for a very clear reading of the outside of the wall. And there on the top here, they have these little marks. Now I use my thumb. You can probably see, if you can see, you can see them, and I use that to then measure where I am when I'm measuring the outside of the form. The other thing that this caliper does is you can slide it up here and slide this into the form, and then it will tell you how deep the bottom of the form is. You can put that down, and then you look up here, and this will tell you exactly how deep the bottom of the form is, so it'll keep you from cutting into the bottom. You spend all that time going through. You spend all that time going through the hollowing process, and then you end up cutting the bottom off, and you don't want to do that too short. The last thing is I'm parting off the tool. Is the parting. This is a 16-inch parting tool. It's a very thin kerf. It has a long handle, so I can get it underneath my arm as I'm parting off the vessel, and it gives me a very accurate cut. So those are all the tools, or those are the main tools I use during the hollowing process. Alright, now I'm back here, and I have the log mounted on the lathe. I've centered it. The next step along the process is to take this piece of wood and smooth it into a cylinder using my roughing gouge. I'll start here. You can see the start of this process. I'm going to turn on my lathe, back off my tool. I've already spun it, so I made sure that it doesn't touch the tool rest. Put my tool on the lathe so I know where it is. I'll turn on the lathe. And now I'll start to rough this down to a cylinder. When I get done here, when I come back, this will be a cylinder, and I'll have it mounted on the four-jaw chuck, ready to smooth or shape the outside of the vessel. Now I've formed the cylinder from that piece of wood, and I've cut a foot. I also cut a piece of that wood off there so that it's not as long as it was when I first started. And I cut the foot and it looks similar to that, then I mounted into the four-jaw chuck. I've got a smaller tool rest here, and first step next is to form the top of the cylinder or the vessel. Sometimes I'll put a lip on it. Other times I'll leave it flat, and then after I form the top, then I'll come down here and form the bottom. This is about a 3-inch in diameter piece. I'll probably keep this about 6 to 7 inches long when this vessel is finally roughed down. So now I'm going to start to form the top of the vessel with the spindle gouge. Now I have formed the top. I've left a little bit of a lip here, so hopefully we'll have a lip on this vessel. The next step is to start working on the bottom, to form the bottom of the vessel. I use a roughing gouge. It's a nice, smooth, straight finish here. I usually start at the bottom and then work my way up. I kind of guess at where I want the bottom of the vessel to be. Turn the lathe on, get my stance nice and wide, keep my elbows down towards my body, and I touch the tool against the wood, and then I bring it up, and you'll hear it start to cut. And I keep my thumb on the tool and my finger on the other side so I can feel the cut as it's being made. Instead of looking at the cut, I actually can feel it as it's being made. I'll turn the